Welcome, Grinners. I am your host, Foxgrin, and I have another backlog build for you, and this is the Leo Strength build. Now, before you think I put the wrong clip in here, let me explain. The Demon's Fist and Great Axe build and the Leo Strength build both use the same level 75 Strength Gouge character. Now, I'm sure I could optimize a little if I made a separate character for each one, but I really like the idea of having two of my favorite builds taking up just one save slot, and I can switch to in the middle of a play session very easily and still keep my other save slots open to try other things out. So let's go through the transformation, and I will use that to take you through my Leo Strength build. First things first, let's change the armor. You can see I just have one option for each there. Always the Gauntlets of Thorns to counter Tears of Denial. Always the Millwood Helm for the antlers. And the Alba Leggings are a really good choice. They give a lot of defense and decent poise, and they're pretty light. And the Follower's armor, I think, suits this very well. It has this roguish look to it, which works very well with the Millwood Greatbow. This build is centered around the Millwood Greatbow. It's one of my favorite weapons in the game, and it's one that you rarely see in invasions outside of sniping. And as such, players rarely know how to deal with the Greatbow up close. The main strategy I like to use is to make enough space to draw the bow and use various tricks to lure them in, and then release when they give me an opening. Such counter damage is boosted by the Leo Ring, which is another star of this build. The huge chunk of damage that a point-blank Leo counter hit from the Millwood gives causes panic, which at this point you must realize that I really love, and it's a big part of my strategy in invasions, is to cause panic and then capitalize on it and have fun the whole time. That can leave them open for a really quick cleanup with that big damage coming out of nowhere, that big burst damage. And players also seem to get annoyed or fixated with the bow, which leads to further mistakes. And when not being challenged up close, I rely on trying to hit them while they are attacking PvE or another invader to do big damage, again with the boost from the Leo Ring. And in general, look for any opportunity to hit them while they are staggered. Finishing off with the ring adjustment, I adjust that to the Knight's Ring because the Millwood actually gets quite a lot. You can see we get 9 damage just for switching, and that compounds quite a lot with the Leo Ring. And then the flex slot is usually going to be the Obscuring Ring or the Cat Ring. If I end up needing it, I'll switch to the Chloranthy Ring as always, but this build uses the Obscuring Ring quite a lot, especially because of the ambush and ranged nature of it. So moving on, the estoc is a natural choice for the main offhand weapon for the Millwood Greatbow. Players often don't notice me take it out. It's kind of a small adjustment. The Millwood Greatbow takes up a lot of the space of my character, and I can use that to get some pretty easy free hits because they think they can walk right up to you when you have this bow out. And it also is really good at just running in and getting an unexpected last hit. If they take the big Leo counter damage and then are running off to immediately panic heal, I can often get there before they can do that and give them that little poke. The Kestis is here because it pretty much makes it onto all my builds. It counters poise, as you've seen in my other videos. It's easy to add to any build because of its low weight and scales well with every build, and is one of my favorite weapons. The punching and the perseverance are just awesome. I rarely parry across all my builds unless it is to counter the charge weapon art, something that's really easy to parry, but I end up doing it the most with this build. As I mentioned, players get fixated on the bow and they tend to try to counter it by running up to it, both of those things making them easier to predict. There is a great example of this in this video, actually. The second primary weapon is a pretty obvious choice because it suits this build so perfectly, and that is the Warpick. A single-handed weapon with a wide moveset that does all thrust damage? Yes, perfect. Oh, and it's one of the rare weapons that continues to scale past the usual hard cap of 40 and scales better with strength than high dex? Oh yes, perfect. Now, the millwood is the main weapon of this build, and I try to switch back to it whenever possible, but this weapon is a perfect secondary primary for this Leo Ring millwood build. Its scaling lets it take advantage of the stats required to get the most out of the millwood. Its damage type takes advantage of the Leo Ring, which is a big part of getting the most out of the millwood, but also happens to particularly work well with my chosen main offhand weapon, the estoc. If you want to see an awesome instructional video with really high production quality about how to best use these two weapons together, go check out Fell's rightfully famous pick and poker build. Link in the description. Thanks again, Fell. You have given me the inspiration for two of my all-time favorite builds, and I really appreciate that. Hopefully I'll see you out there in Elden Ring. So like my Demon's Great Axe build, this seems like a meme build, but actually ends up being really effective and works well for me. I really enjoy the blend of positioning, timing, surprises, and mind games. Speaking of, you can do a rapid turn when you lock on. So if your character is facing one direction, see how the lock on will snap to where I'm going? It'll do the same thing with lock on, but have you face the enemy. So there's a really good tactic of facing away from them and just snapping over and hitting them with that beautiful, glorious, fat counter damage. All right. And here's the build. And now I'll send us off to the invasions from here, where in this very spot, and in this very video, I achieve one of my most glorious millwood shots. Stay tuned, Grinners. I aim away to try to lure him in. They approach, and there's that lock-on that I mentioned. Try to finish this guy off quickly. Back to the greatbow. Does not fall for my trick the second time, and I've got to get out of there. If I remember correctly, this gold just dies off screen. Yep, right there. Look at that. Stairs, jumping, drop attack. Love it. And again, the millwood is the main weapon, so I switch back to it. Try to face away. Get the host with that close-up hit. Look to finish off with the estoc. Beautiful. GG. Okay. This is the one that I mentioned earlier about hyper-focusing on the bow, and I'm just going to let this play out. The host has found themselves in not too great of a spot. Narrowly missed over there. Got all my fellow followers. Just kind of a shitstorm. But I still am the most important one to this host. And I think there was a bit of latency with us because I was missing a few of those really close releases. Really thought I let it go in time before. But just ignoring all this PvE and focusing on me. Probably the best thing would be to lure them away and deal with them, or get somewhere where only I would be attacking, but... And I'm not even playing too well right here, I'm just having fun with it. Got that one off. There you go with the lock on. The boys just going to town on this host. Really thought that one got off too, and right at this point I thought it was a connection error. I was almost positive. But no. Just latency, which makes a lot of those misses from before make sense. And knowing that predictability... Ugh. Beautiful. Beautiful. GG. As I mentioned, they get hyper-focused and they get predictable, and even I can end up parrying them. Yeah, boys. These Leo Strength Millwood invasions tend to go a little slower. A little more pause in between. But, this one's real quick. And that's it. GG. People think they can rock right up to you, and just a little rude waxing from the scholar. Very rude. Face away. Boom. Just trying to get enough space till I can draw again. Counter that aggression. Beautiful roll catch there. Pick and poker. Excellent. Perfect follow-up to the Millwood. And we start with the tandem roll. And I guess a bit of a pause. Okay, some gestures. Hello. Okay. Those little taps to the lock-on rotate my character, which again are to try to make it look like there's an opening. Yes, hello. This host doesn't even think I'm playing seriously. You can see the bows and the kind of, come on, let's go attitude, but I'm ready. This is my main weapon. Let's go. But at a certain point, I switch to the backup. I've got to watch for that poise, that hyper armor. Especially that. The way to counter Perseverance is to just wait a few beats and back up. GG. Yeah, the way to counter Perseverance is just to back up a bit. The effect lasts not as long as the visual effect does. So back up a bit and you can usually lure them into getting hit. I've been playing around with this host for a while, and I had a really strong read that they were going to have to drop eventually, so I was trying to line up something great. Oh, look at that. 1,110 damage from a staggered headshot, it looked like. And this was before I switched over to the war pick. The straight sword was a decent backup, but wasn't getting advantage on the Leo ring the whole time, so I switched. Oh, this is a PvE. Yeah. Oh. Not practical to fight every single enemy with, but it does work for the big ones. Bow runs are very fun. Composite bow being one of my other top favorite weapons. Look at that. Ugh. Usually you have to jump all the way down, but I happened to notice that host was right there, and we broke their poise. host is in a bad spot, and I really just wanted to let the wolf get the kill here. Ooh, GG. Good boy. Nope, goodbye. The weapon art, even if you're not going for the explosion, which the explosion is amazing, it's why the millwood is so good, the default hit also does more damage, so as I played more, I found myself loading up that extra hit, even if it's just hitting normally. And this host doesn't really look like they want to fight. Yep, good job. You don't really want to play the game you're playing, so I figured I usually try to embarrass hosts when they do this. There's nothing wrong with being bad, but not playing the game, it's just not fun. Usually I'll do this and wait for them to move the slightest and then finish them off, so I'll just do something silly. But the host doesn't like that. Now it's time to actually fight. Wait for them to move. Yep. The second the attack animation starts, release. And that's just a good example of the mind games you can play. And why that huge burst counter damage is so fun and so useful. So not just more damage, but the explosion is such a good utility. Ooh, look at that beautiful combo. This is a really fun one. I really enjoyed going against this player. And almost dead. I need to figure out something to do. And the rare estoc weapon art. GG, that was an awesome duel. That was an awesome player. Ah, yes, and I mentioned before, I had the idea for this a while ago. Anytime a player is in a stagger animation, that counter damage is just beautiful. So I wanted to have someone drop down here, and I figure I can lock on in all the confusion and just delete them. And I tried a bunch of times without it working. They either wouldn't come down or just wouldn't be in the area, but I heard some fighting noises and figured I had a shot. And you can hear a spell right there, so I know they're close. Lock on. Dead. GG. Look at the host. Just stands there for a few moments. Like, what just happened? Counter. Beautiful pick and poker. GG. Has a good mix-up of timing and punishes very heavily with the Leo ring. Look how many players are in this server. Ugh, almost got them there. Ooh. When there's a whole bunch of players on you, the millwood gets a little tough, so definitely time to switch, especially because they're going to run into that big counter damage. And I find out here that I actually have a co-invader. Awesome. Now, we had a few lock-on blunders. That was the first one there. The lock-on, unfortunately, can be based on proximity, even if you're not facing it. So The red got me there with an accidental R1, and I end up paying the red back. But we're having a good time. This is awesome. So many players in one server in a closed space, not at meta level. Great. Try to separate them so my co-invader and I can do work on our own. And right there, again, instead of backing up and panic healing, leaning into it. It doesn't mean attack wildly, but sometimes the unexpected attack will do you good. And I switch back to the main weapon here, try to get something fun. And you can see I was definitely facing the gold, but my co-invader got close to me, so it snapped to them instead, and that's unfortunate. It happens, but we're still doing very well. And you can see I was just waiting for the gold to heal. Didn't give him the chance. Beautiful roll catches with the estoc. One of my favorite offhand weapons. And look at that. That was going to be the last hit, but the backstab saved the host. I do not accidentally lock on this time. And just a beautiful co-invasion. GG PV ears. GG red. Awesome. So yeah, not a meme build, lots of fun, and there's a lot more of it. Don't forget to
like, subscribe,
like the bell.